And welcome to JoyScore Live, where hopefully we can bring you a little bit of joy for your life. I'm one of your hosts, Cory, and with me is Kelly. Kelly, how's it going?
Hey, Cory. It's going pretty good. We have been experiencing a bit of a heat wave here in California.
Yeah, it's been rough.
I've been staying indoors in the air conditioning. I haven't been able to get outside too much, but it seems like it's passing a bit. So
thank goodness, because I don't want to die anymore, and that's what's been happening. So, but you know, today we're going to be talking about joy a little bit more, and we actually have Bob, who wrote the book on joy. We'll be bringing him in a little bit later. But, you know, Kelly, what exactly does joy mean to you?
That is a very tough question. Personally, I see joy as something that, you know, makes me happier. I'm feeling content with my life. You know, I am happy to be alive and experience new things. So I think that's what I consider joy.
Do you have like a particular instance maybe where it's like, this adds to my joy?
Yes, video games add to my joy.
Okay, good. Me too. We both play a lot of video games.
We do.
Maybe too much sometimes. Actually, I make video game videos, and I just posted one, and that actually brought me a lot of joy, because not only is it good on a creative level to make, but it was also really cool to see a lot of positive feedback. It's doing really well, and it's cool that people are able to just be positive, because positivity on the internet, as we all know, might not actually exist, but it did for me. So it was nice to see that positivity, and that brought me a lot of joy.
It's very hard to find positivity on the internet.
Yes, it is.
Some people out there can be very negative, and so as a message to you guys watching, be nice to someone on the internet today.
Yes.
Send them a compliment.
Absolutely.
Be cool, and you can cheer up someone else's day so easily.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big part of what joy is for me, because if I can bring joy to someone, then that brings me joy. And, you know, like, just, you know, my saying is don't be a douche. That I feel like that's pretty simple, but people don't like following that idea. All right, cool. Well, I think we're going to take just a short break, but when we come back, we'll be talking to Bob, who wrote the book on joy, and I think we're going to hear some really good insights from him. So stay tuned. Welcome back to JoyScore Live, where hopefully we can bring you some joy for your life. I'm one of your hosts, Cory, and Kelly is my co-host for today. And with us is our guest and also kind of our boss. It's Bob, Dr. Bob, as we call him here.
The man who made it all happen.
That's right. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Thank you.
So you wrote the book, Joy in Health and Happiness, and you've also had a very long career in teaching and architecture and design. How exactly do those things match up? I mean, you know, teaching people how to better themselves and, you know, designing buildings. How does that all work for you?
Well, it started with trying to teach design and help my students excel as designers. So I was looking for a format which would help them achieve better design success, and it led me to realize that in order to do that, you have to be joyful. You have to think from your right brain, be joyful. In fact, I would sometimes, even in my classes, if someone is not smiling, I say, hey, why don't you take a coffee break and come back when you're smiling?
That's smart.
You can't be creative if you're not joyful. I mean, it just somehow doesn't go.
Yeah, you know, when I try to create my own stuff, you know, if I'm not in the right mindset, that's just not going to work out. I mean, Kelly, you probably same thing. If you're trying to do something cool and you just feel like a piece of crap or something.
Well, for any creative activity, you need to be thinking from your right brain.
Mm-hmm.
And right brain doesn't work or doesn't get activated unless you're joyful. So that's the simple reality behind it. So in my search to find joy and help my students, I started researching what makes people joyful. And it all trying to come up with an idea of how to make them successful. But in order to be successful, you have to be joyful and think through your right brain. So that all led me to come up with ideas which I used in my book for joy and health and happiness.
Yeah.
And what was missing after I wrote that book was somehow a way of scoring yourself so you can see what your score is and how to improve. And I got that idea from how sports is done. In all the pros, coaches always keep tab on their scores. You know, this is how they improve by fractions at a time.
Uh-huh.
And I said, okay, so we have to have some way of scoring and people be able to see their score and figure out how to improve it.
Something a little more tangible,
Right.
so then they can see the results and be like, all right, taking proactive efforts to try to improve
Perfect.
the JoyScore. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. That makes
So
sense.
joy and health and happiness added score to it and became JoyScore.
Right.
So this is how JoyScore started.
Yeah.
And from the book, I said, okay, I can now started helping hundreds of students, and writing the book, I could help thousands of students. But developing an app, I could help millions.
Yeah.
So that's what led me to develop an app for JoyScore.
Yeah, so JoyScore is becoming an app. We are doing a website very soon, and we've got even some games, mobile games that are supposed to be designed with it. And so, you know, if I say I'm a miserable student or a miserable person or whatever, what?
Gosh, Cory.
Yeah, say
You're so
say some
miserable.
person is miserable, not me at all. How can you help me? Like, what advice do you have to give about that?
Yeah, so our system is designed to help anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you're a student or a professional, different ages, doesn't really matter. So you try to understand what your joy score is and see what are the weaker areas of your joy score, which is based on the 9 chapters or elements of the book. So we help you identify your weaker areas and stronger areas, and then let you decide which area you want to work on to improve it. So it gradually improves your overall score by attacking the low scores to start with.
I actually have a question for Bob. So when you were researching this, finding a way to kind of measure someone's joy in life, did that give you a different outlook on your own life? Do you feel like you were generally joyful, or did you feel like you needed to change some things?
You know, life is a constant change. You can never stop.
Yeah.
The only day you stop learning or improving or being more joyful is the day you die, you know, because till you live, you have to continue to improve whatever you're doing. In fact, I used to talk about to my students that we're kind of privileged to learn and improve our lives. That's the reason we're part of animal species, but we are a different animal because we can think and improve. Animals can't, you know, like you. If you look at a dog's life, you do the same thing every day. You don't see a lot of improvement.
Yeah.
I've had few dogs, and they always do the same thing every day. They're lovable, but they don't really see them improving a lot.
Well, they're also dependent on people to create their joy.
Exactly.
Some other people are too, but you know.
Yeah, so that's how you continue to learn how to improve your lives. And actually, you were saying dependency or helping others and so on. In fact, you get higher level of dose of joy by helping others.
Yeah.
In fact, I found myself, when I started teaching, I realized I really loved teaching because I was able to help students learn and improve. And it gave me a lot of joy.
Do you have like a specific instance where like that happened, where you really changed like one person's life, and just that like, wow, that was the moment where you knew you had to do this?
Well, Yeah, I mean, you always are challenged. Every time you teach a class, you find some students, you're struggling how to change their life, you know. In fact, one student in particular,
Sure.
she was having a hard time improving in a particular aspect of a design class.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she just couldn't figure out how to crack it, you know. I said, well, why don't you practice it for just 30 seconds every morning before you brush your teeth? And she found it so strange for me to be talking about
Yeah.
to do something before you brush your teeth, but that's the only way I could bring that change in her.
Yeah.
So sometimes you end up being more of a psychotherapist, you know, to your students.
Well, yeah.
To help them out, you know.
I mean, you're leading them into adulthood, you know.
I mean, sometimes I felt like they'll come into my office hours and talk to me, and then they say, can we ask you something? I said, sure, you know. I said, it's kind of personal in nature. I said, how personal is it?
But you have to dig deep, right?
You kind of, you try to help them improve in your class, so you try to help them in any way you can. I mean, one of them was having a problem with her husband,
Yeah.
It's pretty
which I
great.
thought, I said, now I'm a marriage counselor.
Well, you know, I think that that's a big part of it, right?
Yeah.
Where it's not just about your school
Right.
or your one thing. It's you have to look at the big picture.
Everything, yeah.
And it can't just, you can't eliminate one part of it.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, JoyScore covers so many
Yeah,
topics.
this is how the 9 elements came out,
Yeah.
where we started looking at what areas of their lives need to be sort of put in balance for them to enjoy life and be joyful and be better students and better designers. So this is how I started exploring what areas, and 9 chapters or elements came out.
Yeah.
And they're all organized in 3 areas, which is mind, body, and soul. And this is how the whole project is organized to help them focus on the areas they want to improve.
So, okay, so you're saying, you know, you were saying that they're just to improve your teaching capabilities, you want to help teach your students how to be more joyful. Was there a moment where you realized that? Like, where you kind of just like, all right, I'm going to do everything by the books for a while and teach with my passion, but then realizing, like, no, it goes deeper than that. Like, was there a specific instance maybe?
Yeah, so when you start teaching, there's something called an RTP review process, which is after 6 years, you're granted tenure. Tenure as a professor is like, now you're given a blessing that you're a good,
You've proven yourself.
trustable professor, you know. But for 6 years, they literally check every aspect of your teaching philosophy.
So they really give you the credentials, like, hey,
Absolutely.
this guy's for real.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
So there you have to talk about your teaching philosophy and how do you help your students excel. So I came up with this idea that I want to help them excel through being joyful,
Yeah.
because that's the way I can help them excel as designers. So that became my teaching philosophy. And then it became a program to develop from that philosophy how to achieve that goal.
Yeah, because it's a lot bigger than just teaching.
Right.
It could, but that's
Right.
obviously one application for
Right.
it.
That's where it started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's really cool. I mean, so was there any particular inspiration for the book, or was it more just, you know, this is research, this is what works,
Well,
and from your
so
personal life, maybe?
Once I learned how to help my students, I said, well, I can only help a few hundred students every semester, but if I write a book, then I can help thousands.
Yeah.
And after I published the book, I realized that if I can create this self-promoting, guiding scale of joy, which is JoyScore, I can help millions. So this is how this program grew from being a professor to writer to developing an app.
Technology is the way of the
Yeah.
future, so I mean, it's a smart move in order to reach like a bigger audience.
Yeah, I mean, when I started the project, we had to outline a goal, and the goal was in 5 years to be able to reach or help 100 million users.
So it's a decent chunk of users.
So that's the plan.
Okay, well, I mean, hey, you got to dream big, right? So, okay, so you've had this in your professional space. How has the study of joy affected your personal space too? I mean, I believe we don't talk about it for some reason, but you have a wife and kids. Is this a question mark?
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So, like, how does that affect your home life and,
Well, actually, it's interesting you asked that question. So, years ago, I broke my leg on motorcycle.
Oh.
I did not even know that you
We're
rode a
learning all
motorcycle.
these things.
I mean, I don't look adventurous, but I'm very adventurous. I play racquetball, ride motorcycle, fast cars. I have had the fastest cars ever made.
These thrills bring joy to your life?
Race car. Actually, one time on the board of one of the hospitals, they asked us to analyze ourselves, and they found out that I'm going to most likely die in a car accident.
Oh my goodness.
That's horrifying. I don't want to hear that.
So it's always been like wanting to have fun with life,
Yeah.
So adventure, joy, fun, I mean, all they come together in some ways. So when I broke my leg on motorcycle, something happened, so I had to stay in hospital for 11 days because they could not operate in time, so I had to get the swelling down before they could operate. But so for 11 days out of a busy life, I could do nothing but
Right.
only think.
Yeah.
And that's where I actually was able to do a lot of the work to get ready for the book that I published later on, which is Joy and Health and Happiness.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't do anything. I mean, I
but you
couldn't
want to
go
stay
work.
productive. You have to keep doing something.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Because your book does cover a lot of very important parts of people's lives. Was there a specific aspect to improve your joy that you connected with most personally?
Yeah, it's self-esteem.
Self-esteem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I found out that self-esteem is the foundation of every human life.
Yeah.
If you go back to looking at people who sometimes would gravitate toward addictions, for instance.
Sure.
The reason for that is the lack of self-esteem. They try to find instant joy in things which really doesn't exist. It's
Yeah.
like a maybe temporary
It's a
fix.
Band-Aid.
It's a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
It's not fixing
Absolutely.
anything. It's just giving you a Band-Aid solution to a major problem. It starts with self-esteem. So if we can learn to deal with ourselves and realize who we are, and if anything, focus on self-esteem. If you were to look at a chapter in the book, which I think is the most beneficial, is self-esteem.
Yeah.
If you can take care of that, everything else would fall in place.
Yeah. Well, for me personally, like 5 years ago or something like that, I took a little personality test for the Myers-Briggs thing, and I learned things about myself that was like, hey, that's not weird, that's just you, and that's fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that's just who I am. And so about learning about myself, I started to trust myself more, and that plays into the self-esteem aspect.
That's exactly what it is.
Because if you can't trust yourself, then how can you work on anything else?
Trust yourself, love yourself, know yourself, and respect yourself.
Yeah.
It's like all those things that we talk about. Like if you don't respect yourself, you can't respect others.
Yeah. That's
if you don't trust yourself, you can't trust others. It's a good example being when you fly, they say oxygen mask, So when the pressure goes down, you first put the oxygen mask on yourself.
Yeah.
Before you help your students
Kids.
kids.
Hey, look, if you
For
look
you,
at your
it would
students
be-
as kids, that's
Yeah.
fine. That's a
For you,
good
students.
instinct to have. There's nothing wrong with that.
It's funny that you talk about kids. So we generally professors tend to call students kids.
Yeah.
It's like these kids are just this and that, you know.
Yeah.
So in one of the faculty meetings, I was the youngest faculty, I actually became the youngest full professor in California history.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness,
wow,
I
that
didn't know
is-
that.
So
Impressive.
one of the senior faculty members said, "Hey, shut up, kiddo." I said, "Herb, I'm a full professor now.
You can't talk to me like that anymore.
You can't call me kiddo."
The students are the kiddos.
Yeah, the students.
My
call-
dad calls me that, and I get a little irritated sometimes. It's like, I'm 30 years old, Dad. Come on.
When you're married and like older and you have kids and you're 50, he's still gonna call you
Oh,
kiddo.
absolutely.
It's never gonna
I mean,
change.
you know, that's awful, but also endearing, so I can't really get that mad at him.
It seems sweet.
All right, so you learned a lot from self-esteem, studying that for your JoyScore and essentially your overall joy. Is there anything else that kind of pops out to you from those?
Well, self-esteem is one, and the other one is your physical health, which goes to breathing, nutrition, exercising. I train and do something every day.
yeah,
So I have something physical as part of my routine every day.
that's good because I
7
don't.
days
so,
a week.
it's pretty bad over here.
Well, I
You'd
mean-
be happier if you added more physical activity into your day,
I
Cory.
don't know. We talked about video games before, but all right.
So
Maybe
it's,
that's just a
it's
band-aid.
funny in a way that have you heard of Gandhi? Is
Gandhi?
it- yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so he was known as a spiritual leader,
Yeah.
who brought a lot of goodness and happiness to a lot of people, So once a mom came to him and said, "Sir, could you help my son? He eats a lot of sugar." He said, "Come back in 2 weeks." And she said, "Okay." So she come back in 2 weeks, and then he told him that, "Look, son, eating too much sugar is not good for you." So she said, "Sir, why could you tell him the same thing 2 weeks ago?" He said, "Well, 2 weeks ago I was eating too much sugar." So I had to fix myself first.
Yeah.
So after I wrote the book and kind of figured it out, and I said, there are a lot of stuff that I'm talking about, I'm not paying attention myself.
Yeah, you have to lead by example, not
Yeah,
just.
you're trying to teach people and you're not doing some of those things. So I had to bring it all into my life, and I realized that, wow, it becomes so much more joyful.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a proven fact that if it can help me, it can help anybody.
That's good because a lot of that has to come from personal experience.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you're not an expert. You're
And it
just-
also allows you to experiment
Yeah.
and sort of test as you go along,
Yeah.
Every aspect of it, when I start thinking about, how do I deal with that in my life, is start realizing how to fine-tune it, and it becomes better and better and better.
Well, people on Facebook, as you've probably seen, like to tell other people what to do, but
Right.
they don't
No.
do it themselves
Yeah.
or exercise what they're preaching. So
Right.
it's good that you're doing that
Yes.
because, if you write a book about something, you're expected to, do it, I guess.
Even if it's something you don't practice, if it's something you criticize, you should still experience it for yourself
absolutely.
before you criticize
Yeah,
against
yeah,
it.
Yeah. And I've seen a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this app and program, when it's launched in the next few months, it's going to be amazing to be able to help people with all walks of life, in every aspect of their life, and help them achieve their goals better and faster.
Gotcha.
And that's what its goal.
All right. Well, is there anything in the book, or rather, is there anything that's not in the book that you've learned since you've started this project that, you've kind of like, well, if I wanted to add to the book, this is something that I would think about?
The good thing about this project is that we're developing these apps and games and platforms and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all being developed based on what we call agile method.
Okay.
So what it means is that you constantly, based on the feedback, improve it.
That makes sense. Just
So-
like what it's suggesting for you.
Right. So it's never going to be ever fully developed, fully done. It's going to constantly be changing based on the feedback. In fact, in the app, we are sort of putting some analytics which allows us to see some feedback and improve it as we move forward. So going back to your idea of is there anything missing, there's a lot missing.
Sure. Well, okay,
fact, it's like a starting point.
Yeah.
You know, for instance, when you graduate from university, you get a degree. Now that's a starting point of what you need to do in that profession.
Yeah.
So the same way when we launch these programs and apps, it's going to be the starting point, and it's going to continue to improve forever.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, is there something specific that you've been like, this is just like really cool to me that I learned this? No? No one particular instance. Okay. All right. Well, hey, if you're just joining us, this is JoyScore Live, and I am one of your hosts, Cory, and we've got Kelly in with co-hosting today. And with us is Bob, who's an expert on trying to figure out how to make your life more joyful. He wrote the book, Joy in Health and Happiness, and he's doing a new project called JoyScore, which I'm sure you're keenly aware of, and it is supposed to help you become more joyful. So, Bob, I wanted to know, I guess, I mean, what's your JoyScore? Have you taken the test? Have you analyzed yourself in this manner? How are you doing?
Pretty good.
Pretty good? Still areas of improvement?
But still areas to go.
Always.
I have not reached 900 yet.
Not 900. That's that's our current top level. You know, you're perfect. I mean, if you say you're perfect, you might not be perfect, but I don't know.
Well, I think you never reach, I should say, a level of perfect score.
Right.
Because life is almost like a gray scale.
Sure.
From one extreme to another. And everyone is somewhere in the scale of gray between white and black. So you may reach very close to the highest point, but I don't think you can ever reach perfect.
The very top, yeah. So I also wanted to ask, you know, in my personal experience, joy is a pretty broad topic. A lot of existential questions about what it really means to be joyful. It seems hard to me sometimes to grasp the idea of like, well, putting it into numbers. What would you say to someone who might think like that?
How can you translate to numbers?
Yeah, how can you translate joy and happiness into something that's, you know, that numeric?
Well, anything that you want to work on or improve on, it has to have a system.
Okay.
And that's where the scoring comes in. In order to improve, like for instance, when you take a class, you have a grading or grades you get or scores you get. So scoring is a simple methodology of how to keep track of your improvements. So you yourself can say, okay, in this particular element or chapter, my score was 52. I read the chapter, I looked at some of the videos, I looked at some of the podcasts, some video library, and now my score is 61. So you can see how it's improving, and it becomes self-assuring that when you put some work into it, you can improve that.
So the idea isn't just to say this is how happy you are, but it's more so to just give you something to measure a little bit and hopefully make steady, visible, and tangible improvements.
Yeah, it's more of a methodology of how to improve and keep track of your improvements.
Because I took the basic version of the test, and I was only 80%, I think, which is, you know, a B- in life.
That's actually not bad.
It's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe I don't have to hate myself.
I don't think you can translate JoyScore into grades.
Right.
It's more, well, it really is modeled after credit scores. Like credit score is out of 900. JoyScore is out of 900. So you're kind of modeling it after that. And in some of the focus group study, we found that there's a correlation between credit score and JoyScore.
Well, debt is an immensely stressful topic for a lot of Americans at the very least.
Well, what happens is when you improve your JoyScore or you get your life together a little bit, it starts influencing your credit score positively.
Yeah.
So in a sort of way of saying, you could improve your credit score by improving your JoyScore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, kind of is a logical thinking.
Yeah. Well, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you don't want to take too many small loans to try to take care of it, like, addictions or whatever.
Right.
If we want to keep this analogy going anyway.
Exactly.
Now, do you think that someone's JoyScore, like taking the test, it's possible that it can fluctuate, like from time to time, depending on how their joy is?
Absolutely.
What is it exactly, do you think, that affects it negatively? Like maybe a few examples that you have off the top of your head.
Well, sometimes there are some things which happen in your life beyond your control. And they can start pushing you down or making you not as joyful or as controlled or as upbeat. But then the system there is designed to help you bring you back. Like, for instance, one day you might be feeling yourself down, but then if you go back to look at some tools talked about in self-esteem chapter, you'll come back up, You'll find a way to overcome some of those obstacles or issues and realize that it's all temporary.
So once the JoyScore website and app are finally released, which is coming very soon,
right.
It's something consistent that people should be using to raise the joy in their life, because the joy fluctuates,
all
right?
the time. It would become a way of life for most people.
And what are these goals that you're hoping to see JoyScore reach? I know that you've talked about reaching hundreds of thousands of people with the app, but you also have plans for other programs set in place to help companies and so on, right?
So the app is going to be helping business to business and business to consumer. So you call B2B, B2C. So business to business, in fact, we are in the process of formulating it for one of the companies that will launch it at, to help them achieve what we call key performance criteria. So we'll take about 3 issues that the company is facing and show them how, by improving the JoyScore of employees within 3 months, how those performance elements can improve and the performance of employees can improve. So once we prove that, then it'll give us a soundboard to start from. We're excited about it.
I'm very excited for it.
Cool. I had another question. Since we've been talking a lot about people who just want to make daily improvements in their lives, the average Joe who's student, working, whatever, but they're not doing too bad. But what about someone who's really not doing well? Like, say they're suffering from something like depression, which can be debilitating, or anxiety, or something that's a little bit more severe, and they can't talk to a medical professional about it. How can, what would you suggest for someone like that? And not just from a JoyScore perspective, but from your perspective.
So that's interesting. I gave the book to one of my friends, and she's the Associate Dean of Health and Human Sciences on our campus.
Yeah.
And she went through the book and said, wow, this is very interesting. It should be given to every homeless and addict of any kind, because it has exercises and lessons which can help them come out of those issues that they are facing, which is keeping them down. So addiction is, again, going back to, like we were talking about earlier, self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
So if people can learn how to pull themselves out of the hole they're in psychologically, start dealing with those demons that are keeping them down, they can fight addiction and homelessness and a lot of the issues they're facing in their life. In fact, I think this is a good tool for fighting addiction, any kind.
So, okay, well, even, I hope they get the book and I hope they get to read it. But say that they can't, and say someone's listening right now and they're in pain. I mean, do you have a suggestion for them?
Yeah, we sort of talked about early on in the project, well, some people don't want to read.
Yeah.
So that's the reason we have these games.
Sure.
So each chapter has a game associated with it, which can indirectly help them achieve those educational goals about the chapter through playing games.
Yeah.
So we kind of have found a way to introduce it to them by taking a quiz, reading the chapter, reading the book, or playing games.
Okay, but what if they were just talking to you, like right now? What would you say to them?
Well, you got to start somewhere.
Okay.
You got to start with something because, I don't want to be sounding religious here, but even in Bible it says God would only help those who help themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you start doing something about what it is that you're trying to achieve, nothing is going to happen. So either they have to take a step forward, look at some of our videos, look at our book, play some of our games. All those tools are designed to help people at all age levels and all walks of life.
Okay. So, just as an example, when I was a little bit younger, in my early to mid 20s, I had plenty of days where I didn't even want to get out of bed because I was depressed. I don't think that guy would have picked up a book, or would have even picked up a game,
You don't think you would have picked up a phone app game?
No, because because at that point, there's no difference between any of those, the book or whatever.
Yeah.
You don't want to.
Yeah, maybe not the day you were so down that you wouldn't get out of the bed.
Sure.
But then we do get out of the bed. It gives you an opportunity to learn about this project.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do get in bed and not able to get out, this could help you get out.
Okay. But how does that help the guy who's still in bed? What if they're stuck there,
Yeah, not at that point.
Yeah.
But eventually when the person is out, or someone is, or let's say your dad walks up to you and say, "Hey, Cory, would you please do me a favor and read this book or read this chapter or play this game?"
Well, so is that what you would say to them, though? Because, say you had a friend who was in that situation. Well, would you just be like, "Hey, I think I can help you"?
Yeah, absolutely.
But do you think you could approach it just by saying, "I'm going to give you this stuff"?
Well, see, it's like, sometimes you think they don't want help. They're crying for help.
No, absolutely. I think so.
If somebody were to come to them and say, "Listen, at least give it a try, okay? I know it can't hurt you." And they try and it helps them even a little bit.
Yeah.
Sometimes you spend the whole weekend, take a program or a seminar, spend thousands of dollars and spend the whole weekend, and you're coming back and you say, "What did I really learn from it? I'm spending so much money and time." And you say, I can think of at least one thing that I can take away from it.
Yeah.
It actually is worth all the time and money you spent there. So if this person who's down so deep and depressed could just take one thing out of the game, the discussion, the podcast, live shows, or the book,
Yeah.
it could get the engine rolling,
Yeah.
get started.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, do you have advice for people who are feeling like they need that extra step? Just from your perspective, because it's one thing to just say, "Hey, there's a book that I wrote," but it's another to hear it directly from you, as someone who's written about this stuff.
Well, the most important thing for all of us when we do go down or feel as bad as you describe being in bed, that there's still hope. You should never give up hope at any given time in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So if you give yourself up to that level where you say there's no hope, then you're not going to come out. But you should always let yourself know there's always hope.
I definitely think that's something that our viewers can help spread to other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, if you see a friend or someone that, even if you don't know them too well, that seems like they could use a little encouragement, we definitely recommend that you guys go out there and just let them know, like, there is more out there. Like, don't let yourself get down. There's still hope for a new day. There's still hope for a brighter tomorrow. Like, definitely, you know, spread this joy. It only takes like little acts of kindness to really spread this joy and help get that person to the point to help themselves.
In fact, what Kelly just talked about is part of our project in general, where we sort of trying to find a way to institute a system where people can earn points or bonus points, which can be converted into joy dollars and so on and so forth.
Joy dollars, okay.
But the point of it is that, like I said earlier, the sense of joy that comes from helping others is phenomenal. And that's what Kelly was talking about, that people know that if they can help anyone, friend, relative, someone in the family, in any way or shape or form, it will bring them joy. In fact, the best way to earn those joy points is to help others, an act of kindness, helpness. All those things really help you earn points and give you a sense of joy.
Yeah.
That's one of the best things you could do.
I mean, you know, it really is kind of a big deal when you say something nice to someone, because it feels like it's not as common these days, you know, where it feels like, you know, you walk down the street and no one really says hi to each other anymore.
Yeah, and
We're always down looking at our phones now, texting.
Learned something from my mother when I was a child. You know, she said, if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say anything.
Yeah, that's a time-honored classic, really.
So that says a lot about how we just stop talking to each other.
Well, maybe, yeah, okay. So it's a combination of that.
Uh-oh.
Maybe it's like if you don't, you know, have something nice to say, think of something, you
right.
jerk.
Yeah, basically.
Or just don't say anything.
Lie. No.
Lie.
Because you're not going to help anyone if you're not going to say something nice. In fact, like you were saying, if you want to really say something, just change a little bit to make it nicer, you know?
Yeah. Well, there's
It
no
won't
reason.
hurt you.
There's never any reason, in my opinion, to be like negative. Because
No.
I think positive reinforcement works better than negative reinforcement. That's my personal opinion. I know not everyone agrees with that.
And in fact, you can try it out, okay? Anytime you say something positive or nice to someone else, it'll make you feel good. If you say something nasty and be a bad person to someone, you may think, oh, I got even by the son of a bitch, you know, but it doesn't make you feel good.
Yeah, you get even.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So what?
You both lose, really, when it comes down to it.
Exactly.
I do remember in college, I had an exam. It was a French exam. So
French.
it was.
She would take French in college.
You know, I studied Spanish all through high school and elementary school, and then college. I'm like, I'm going to learn a new language. And I was like, no,
And
stop
you
it.
remember neither of those now?
I do remember. I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good at Spanish. Okay.
Okay.
Not to toot my own horn, but I
Espanol.
had a French exam, and I just was so stressed out and felt like unprepared, even though I had been practicing all night, that I was I came to class crying. I was crying and I was super embarrassed.
Oh man.
And
that's rough.
at the end of the class, there was this kid, and he just threw a compliment at me. He was like, "Oh, I love your outfit." He was just he did something to cheer up my day, and it worked. That was what my French class was, 8 a.m. So literally, he made my rest of the day much better just by being nice. He could tell I was having a tough day.
Well, because he also didn't have to do that.
He didn't have to. He could have just walked out and ignored me. And
but he was like,
he could tell I was stressed out.
She needed something.
Yes. Yeah, I needed. I was like, oh.
You know, she reminds me of my French class. So we're doing these projects in Switzerland, the French-speaking part. So I said,
Gotcha.
I got to learn some French, because I can't read anything, I can't talk to anyone. So it's better. So I started taking French classes. So I talked to one of the professors on campus and say, hey, can I take your class? I said, sure, you come on in, you know. You're a professor, you can sit in the back, you know. You don't even have to sign up. So then a few weeks later, she came to me and said, listen, you shouldn't come to my class. I said, why? They said, because you fall asleep in the
You're not learning
I
anything.
said, it's so relaxing.
Yeah, this nice French sounds.
Bringing in joy.
I didn't take
Sure,
any French, so I don't even know.
I got kicked out of a class.
You got kicked out of a free class. That's how you get joy, right?
Yeah.
That's also that's a chapter in there somewhere. Well, okay, so I mean, this is all. I think this is all really important. I still, you know, it as I said before, it's still kind of hard for me to fully get the numbers is what throws me off a little bit, because joy to me is so intangible. But I think that's also the point, right, of having the numbers, is because that is tangible and trying to bridge that gap between analytical and fully existential.
Actually, you sort of touched the point which is very critical to this project. It's very hard to put a number on joy.
Yeah.
But in order to achieve the goal we are trying to achieve, which is to improve the level of joy so we can be more successful, achieve better things in life and so on, it has to have a system. So it's kind of almost attaching a numerical system to something which is very difficult to believe that could have numerical approach to it.
Yeah.
So that's what makes it unique, because there's so many apps and books and things which are out there when I research. Nothing really does it so systematically that you can improve your joy score by few points at a time.
Yeah.
In different aspects of your life, not just overall. Because first of all, when you say joy, it's like, I don't understand what it is.
Yeah. Well, it's
You know.
not always super easy to define.
No. So to take it down to 9 different elements and chapters and then be able to score them, that in itself makes it very unique. Never seen anything, and this is what's going to... And that's where my teaching background comes into place, because when you're teaching, you have to always score. In fact, that was the worst thing. I hated grading and teaching, because all the time students would come, well, I think I deserved a better grade or better score. How do you argue that?
Yeah.
So you had to do it, you know, even though, it's how can you, in design project, you know, it's generally very hurtful to say, well, you're really not very good.
Because it's subjective, too,
Right,
to some
right.
extent.
How dare you say
Yeah.
that?
It's like,
That's your perception of
Yeah.
it. That's not true.
that's tough.
It is.
Because joy itself is
Oh,
subjective,
absolutely.
too. I mean, you
Same-
can't just...
Same problem, same
Yeah.
thing, you know.
Well, it's interesting. It kind of reminds me of of that.
But I'll tell you the best thing about it all
Yeah.
is that the system is designed to do self-evaluation. So nobody is telling you what your score is.
It's
You're
you
not
figuring it
telling
out.
anyone what your score
Yeah.
is. You figure it out, and you develop a plan to improve yourself. Nobody's telling you to do that either. So it's all self-guided.
Yeah.
And that's the best thing about it.
Well, I think that's important, too, because it's not like, well, this book is something I have to rely on.
Right.
It's like you're learning for yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because
And it's going to become something you can use for your lifelong journey.
Yeah.
At any given time in your life, you sort of seem to be doing well, but then now you're feeling that, you know, I think I need a little refresher for my relationship
Mm-hmm.
because I see some problems there. Well, you go look at the chapter, look at some of the videos, some of the podcasts, live shows, quiz, games. There's so many tools there to help you.
Yeah.
Something is going to figure out for you.
I hope so. If you need more, then
Exactly.
you might need to...
No, I think people are going to be able to find the tool that they feel comfortable with to improve their joy score.
Yeah. Well, you know, it kind of reminds me of the concept, going back a little bit,
Right.
between you know, the differences between science and religion,
Right.
where there's, you know, the idea of faith versus like hard, cold facts.
Right.
And I think that the two are not mutually exclusive.
Right.
And just like this, where it's like, well, you know, we can still analyze ourselves and figure out where there's a problem, but, you know, the very nitty-gritty of it is, it's kind of difficult to fully grasp. So it's a combination of the two that you have to use in conjunction.
Yeah, you kind of, in a way, learning to find yourself
Yeah.
or learning who you are.
And that's what it comes down to, really,
Exactly.
for Joy, is
I mean, if
understanding
you get,
yourself.
You know, like when we were born, in fact, I'll talk to my students all the time and realize that it's so true. They went through high school, now they're at the university, you know, they're taking my classes, they're trying to do everything. But nobody really ever taught them how to develop a system of improving themselves. So this is it. You know, this is what was missing in everybody's life as my students, to have a system, have a program that they can follow themselves to achieve their goals.
Well, that's part of the, in my opinion, our problem with our culture in
Absolutely.
general, is that, like, you're just told, like, hey, you need to make money, you need to become successful, you need to go to college to do this and this. And, like, I'm not saying that's not important, but the bottom line is you're going to do that all very inefficiently if you don't even, like, understand
know yourself. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, one of the discussions I've had with one of the deans is that this program has a potential of being part of University 101. So every student at the university coming in could benefit from it, to learn how to find themselves and establish their own understanding so they can achieve their goals faster and better.
Mm-hmm. It kind of reminds me of the idea of, like, when there's, like, a bunch of different animals and you tell them, like, say there's like a cow, a pig, and a fish, and you're just like, well, all of you are fish, actually. And if you tell them that enough,
Right.
they're gonna believe it,
They're fish.
and they're gonna think that something's wrong with them.
Right.
And that's what I always thought when I was young. It's like, hey, like, you should be an engineer, or you should be all these other things. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, and like, or, you know, I don't know if anyone actually said I should be an engineer, but just as an example, like, you should do all, you know, be a doctor, or, you know, try to do all this other stuff. Like, no, I want to do something creative. It's like, no, that's stupid. And it's like, you know, when you're told that you should be doing something when you really just have to figure out yourself, you know, what makes you happy and joyful, then, you know, if you haven't figured that out, then that's going to be a problem, I think.
Actually, if you simplify the understanding of the JoyScore program, it's almost like learning how to drive.
Mm-hmm.
Learning how to drive your life is what JoyScore is. Understanding yourself and how to achieve your goals by being joyful, having a good enough joy score, and learning how to improve your joy score, you can achieve whatever else that you're trying to achieve. So once you learn how to be joyful and understand who you are, everything in life is going to become simpler and easier.
I hope so.
That's what it is.
Okay.
It's pretty simple.
Makes sense. I mean, if I didn't realize, finding joy is simple with the book.
Well, it's like a systematic approach.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's,
you know, it's like you say, well, in order to succeed, you need to be more joyful. And then you say, well, how?
Yeah.
This is how.
Yeah. I mean, that's the important thing, is that they're tools.
Right.
But you still have to put in your own work,
Absolutely.
your own study, and really understand not just the what, that is picking stuff up, but
Right.
why you're doing it.
Exactly.
Why you're trying to help yourself, you know,
Absolutely.
be better. I mean,
Yeah.
if I could tell younger me a few things.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wish that I had this sort of knowledge in college to bring myself more joy, because that was quite a stressful time.
Look, if Dr. Bob just told me once, like, hey, just like understand yourself. Like, oh, it actually all makes sense now. If I just took 1 second, but I mean, not everyone's told that.
Right.
In fact, most people aren't told that. Definitely.
Well, can you imagine living a life and not understanding yourself?
I mean,
that's scary in a way.
Did it for the majority
Oh
of my
my
life
God,
so
yeah.
far.
I mean, and look, everybody does that.
Yeah.
But the point of it is that once you understand it, it becomes so simple.
I actually do agree with that sentiment. I mean, personally, that's when my life started becoming a lot more enjoyable, and I could actually feel confident in some of the things, not everything, but most of the things that I do, where it's like,
Right.
okay, now I get it. Kelly, have you had any spiritual awakenings within yourself?
I mean, I don't know if I would call them spiritual awakenings, but I definitely think that right after I graduated from college, which, like I said a few minutes ago, college was the cause for a lot of stress in my life, things just cleared up. Like when tests were kind of removed and homework was removed, and this like responsibility that I felt like I couldn't control was removed.
Yeah.
It opened me up to a lot more possibility of happiness. Like, it just cleared up my mind. So I would love to help people in that moment, whether it's college, whether it's with a specific job, whether high school. Like, I wish I could tell them and give them the message, like, you can control the joy in your life. Like,
Yeah.
you can help make yourself happier.
That's actually one thing that some of my friends have talked about, where it's like they don't realize or remember that they have control over their lives to an extent. Like,
Yeah.
you can't necessarily control the outcome, but you can always control the way you act and react. And that's really important
Yes.
to
It's a very
understand.
good way
Like,
to put
hey,
it.
like, I tried at least. That matters. Even if the result was not the desired one, this still matters. Bob, is there an instance for you, maybe even when you were younger, where you realized the kind of person you were or understood yourself?
Lot of things.
Give me some examples. I want to hear them.
One of the most, or I should say, profound difference it made in my life was I did a research project trying to study masters in architecture. So I went to one of my professors and said, look, I like to learn how to become a very successful architect. And I want to learn from all the masters. I want to study their life and come up with some matrix which I can follow.
Okay.
So I spent a few months researching their autobiographies, backgrounds, lives, and come back to him and say, look, they're so diverse, but there's one thing I found in all their lives, all these masters. They all taught and were professors somewhere. Is that a possibility? So yeah, that's the reason I'm teaching. So I got to teach. I say, yeah, if you want to excel. But the point of it is, so going back to teaching, I found that to be the most rewarding thing I have ever done in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I made a lot of money elsewhere doing other things, but teaching was the most rewarding thing.
Yeah.
That's what I did for feeling valued.
And so that was
Getting the joy.
Yeah. So that was your realization
Right.
of like, this is what matters the most to me. Because
Yeah.
not everyone will feel
And,
like
and
that.
you know, then I use the same strategy with my students.
Yeah.
So somebody would come to me and say, listen, I did not understand anything from today's class.
That's unfortunate.
I said, remind me the next class and I'll help you.
Hmm.
So she comes back to me and said, well, are you going to help me today? I said, yeah. So I want you to tell somebody in this class that you like what you didn't learn or learn from the last class. Just tell them. Explain them.
Mm-hmm.
And by going through that process of trying to explain someone or almost trying to teach someone what she learned or didn't learn, made things clear.
Because they had to not just figure it out, but make sense of it.
It's like sometimes you tell yourself, "Oh, I didn't understand anything," and they don't realize that they did understand a lot, but they're telling themselves they didn't understand anything. And trying to help someone with anything helps you a lot. So if you
That's a great message.
Yeah.
That's a good message.
So if you ever feel unclear about something, try to explain it to a friend that you don't feel threatened.
Yeah.
Say, "Hey, can I tell you about something?" They say, "Why?" They say, "Because I'm not clear about it." I say, "Fine."
All right, well, the lesson of the day is teach someone something, because then you will understand it.
Teach and help.
Teach and help.
That's it.
That makes perfect sense.
That's the slogan.
All right, well, I think that is how we're going to end it, because teaching and helping people is a good thing, in my opinion. I mean, I don't teach or help anyone, so, I'm terrible. But,
this is why there's no joy.
There's no joy in my life. But thank you, Bob. Thank you so much for being here and just talking about your life and the book, because I think this is really important.
And thank you for spreading the message.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you, Kelly, for joining me. It's always a pleasure. And I'm Cory, and I think that we are just signing off. So, hey, stay tuned for in a couple... Well, we'll be having more shows for JoyScore Live, but also in about a week, we're going to be launching our new website. It's joyscore.co. That's C-O. And I think that we're going to get a whole bunch of awesome stuff on there. So just be prepared for how amazing that website will be. And we look forward to improving joy in your life. Thanks for watching.